Now, what they left out of that story was, Danny taught me how to play cards, but the problem was I was broke. So he solved that problem by giving me his paper route. He had the paper route that he used to get up in the morning and deliver the papers. He gave me the paper route then, let me work all week long, and then on Friday night he'd be shuffling cards on my stoop, beat me out of my money every week. My mom would say, don't play with Danny, he's too good for you, he's too good for you. And every week I'd come in, my chin on my chest, I'd lose my money. Finally, after about 3 or 4 weeks, she says, you know, if you're so stupid to work all week and lose all your money to Danny every week, you don't deserve to have any money. So that was a true story. But I'm probably speaking first here because I've known Danny longer than anybody here. I moved to his neighborhood a couple weeks before I started the 5th grade. Danny was 2 years older than I was. He was in 7th grade at that time. And back then, you know, when a guy has 2 or 3 years age on you, it's a big handicap there. And Danny took full advantage of it all through my career, I can promise you, when we were growing up. But before I get started here, I do want to take a moment to thank Bob for putting this together and the Commerce Casino for allowing us to have this space and be here, and certainly for all of you for coming out to help celebrate Danny's life. It really is very nice to do this, and I assure you nobody would be more pleased or proud than Danny if he were sitting here watching this today, so he would like it. But, you know, a lot of you people didn't even know Danny Doyle got to California, for example, and even the few guys that were playing poker back in the 70s that really recognized and knew what a real legend Danny was in the poker world. There's not even many of us left that were back in those days, but I'm even going back to tell PR stories, as I say, about Danny, pre-religion. So when I first met Danny, as I said, I was like in the 5th grade, and Danny was an idol in our neighborhood. He was the man. He was the king. He was really good looking. He was great at everything, a super athlete, and he gambled on everything, and he influenced us to gamble on everything, of course. And I still blame Danny to this day. I've been a degenerate gambler all my life, and I blame it on Danny Robison, that's for sure. You know, all that stuff you hear about, you make choices, and you know, you're in charge of your own destiny and all that, it's all BS. You know, Danny planted a seed of degeneracy in me so bad that I never have gotten rid of it for all my life. But when we were kids, I swear to you, it was the most middle-class neighborhood you could find. We were the best kids. None of us ever smoked or drank, never had a cigarette, never drank a beer in high school, not one, till we got off to college. But we gambled because of Danny. He liked to bet on everything and gamble on everything, and he got us betting on everything. And I mean everything. Didn't matter if it was bowling, ping pong, cards, wiffle ball. It didn't matter what it was. We bet on it. Golf, everything. Danny made us bet on it. And he gave me his paper out so I'd have a little money to gamble with him. But people don't realize, really, what a great athlete and a superstar Danny was when he was young, when he was in high school. He was really good looking. When I say good athlete, when he was a sophomore, and our junior high was 7, 8, 9, and high school was 10, 11, and 12. When Danny was a sophomore, he played the #1 man on the golf team that won the Ohio State High School Golf Championship. He was also the starting point guard on the basketball team, and this basketball team went to the regional finals of the state championship when Danny was a senior. And they played a team, Dayton-Belmont. And this Belmont team, to this day, may be the greatest high school basketball team in the history of Ohio. They had 2 future college All-Americans on it, Don May and Bill Hoskett. Don May went to the University of Dayton. He took the Dayton Flyers to the Final Four. They won the first game. They lost in the championship game to UCLA and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back then. He was Lou Alcindor back in those days. The very next year, Bill Hoskett took Ohio State to the Final Four, and they also lost to UCLA and Alcindor. But in that regional championship game, it was the closest game that Belmont played in like 3 years when those guys were in school. It wasn't Don May or Bill Hoskett that was the highest scorer, it was Danny Robison. He scored 27 in that game, and in our neighborhood, my house was here. There was a house behind us, and 2 doors down was Danny's house. And we most all the time gravitate to Danny's house because in his backyard, he didn't have a backyard. It was a full basketball court in his backyard. He had a cement basketball court. His dad took out the grass and put a basketball court in there. And so we hung around his house a lot. And his dad was a short little fat guy. And real Danny, you know, and he was do that all the time. And but he wanted Danny and his brother Jimmy to be pro golfers when they were growing up. Now Jimmy was about 4 years older than Danny. A lot of you know him too as well. But all he wanted was his kids to be pro golfers. So he would pay them as a job to go out and hit golf balls every day. That would be the job that they would have. Hit a bucket of balls, hit 2 buckets of balls. And Danny was a phenomenal golfer, as I said. The week he got out of high school, 2 weeks later, they had a City of Dayton golf championship. So he calls me on the phone, and he says, Mike, he says, come caddy for me. I'm going to play in the city championship, you know. And he said, I'll give you $5 a round and $50 for the week if I win the tournament, which I probably will. Now, he just got out of high school, and in the City of Dayton, the golf championship, you have medal play on Monday, and the top 64 scorers then go to match play. And they play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and 2 rounds on Saturday if you win. So, of course, I agreed to go caddy for him. So Danny wins the first couple matches, gets down to the round of 16. We're going into the 16th hole. Danny's 1 under par, but he's 2 down in this match. This guy's 3 under that he's playing. And on 16 was a par 5 hole. They both hit good drives, and the guy was just far in front of Danny off the tee. And so Danny hit first. He gets out of 3 wood, flies it to the green. He's about 30 feet from the hole. It's a great shot. Okay. This guy now hits a 3 wood and hits it about 15 feet from the hole. Well, Danny makes his putt for eagle. This guy misses. Danny birdies 17 to win that hole, and this broke the guy down. Danny parred 18, the guy bogeyed it, and Danny wins the match 1 up, goes on to win the city championship. So Danny was really a terrific golfer. So now he got a golf scholarship to High University. So he goes to High University, and when he's there, the fraternity he's pledging, you know, most of the time at homecoming and stuff at most colleges, it's upperclassmen, seniors or something, that run for Campus King. Well, they had a Campus King contest at OU, and his fraternity made freshmen go qualify for this. So one of them had to go, so they picked Danny. So Danny runs for Campus King. Now, most people, you go around all the sorority houses and, you know, you say why you should be Campus King, and they sing songs to the girls and all this. Well, Danny goes over there with a deck of cards, and all this, and he's shuffling the cards. He said, hi, ladies. Dan's my name, gambling's my game. And he goes into this speech, you know, the women call me coffee because I grind so fine and all this, you know, and he's got all this stuff, you know, and a big speech that he gets down. Well, Danny wins the Campus King contest, of course. Now, he didn't make it through the year because Danny never went to class. He was out gambling, playing cards, so he flunks out of college because he never went to class. So he goes back to Dayton. I'd gone to college, got in the Army, and got out of the Army. Now, after basic training, I was in basic for 8 weeks at Fort Knox, then I was in AIT training. And one Friday afternoon, the guy let us off at noon. Now, you're not allowed to go home during basic, so I got to go back to Dayton. Now, back in those days, you hitchhiked everywhere. When you're in uniform, it didn't take you 5 minutes to get a ride. So I got back in no time, so I called Danny up. I get back. I said, Danny, what's on schedule for the weekend? He said, well, I just met this girl at the bar the other night, and he said, I'm taking her out tonight. He said, but tomorrow night, I'm playing in Breyer's poker game. Now, Breyer's poker game was a 10, 27 card stud game back then. And he said, why don't you go with me? So I said, okay. So I had $40 in my pocket. I went to the bank, had $382 in the bank. I took out $370. I put $10 down in my sock to make sure I had money to get back in case fate went wrong in the poker game, and I had a $400 buy-in for this game. So Danny picks me up. We're on the south side of Dayton, and this poker game is in the north side of Dayton. Now, it's just an empty house, this poker game. There's nothing but a poker table downstairs in the basement. Upstairs, there's an old rickety couch, one table with a black and white TV on it. Okay, but what I remember about this place is the front door of the house, it was about, from here to that wall, and they cut out a telephone pole. When they propped the telephone pole from the front door, wedged to this wall, so nobody can get in the front door. You went in the back door to get in this game. But anyway, so Danny picks me up. We go to this game. And it started at 7 o'clock, and we got there a little bit early, of course. And so the game starts. Well, naturally, by 10 o'clock, I'm broke. I don't have any money, so I'm sitting on the side. I can't get home because I don't have a car. I've got no money. And Danny keeps playing. So I'm going to let him play a while. So it gets to be about midnight. And I said, Danny, I've got to go back to Fort Knox tomorrow. You know how much longer are you going to play? So just another round. So now, about 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, I finally said, Danny, I got to go. So finally he wins a good pot, and he cashes out. And we walk up the steps, and we're walking out the back door. And as we open the door to go out, the guy sticks a badge in my face like this. And all of a sudden, The guy says, go, 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 go. And about 8 or 10 policemen stream down the steps, and they start screaming, freeze, 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 to everybody downstairs. And so the cops have come in to bust the game. So I got busted, now we're going to get busted. And one guy steers me and Danny in the living room, because we weren't downstairs. He says, sit down here. So we're sitting on the couch. A few minutes later, the guy in charge obviously comes up the steps. And he looks at Danny, he says, okay. He said, whose game is this? Danny says, I don't know whose game it is, you know. He said, we just stopped by to see a friend, you know. He looks at me, he said, whose game is this? I said, well, I don't know either. I said, I'm just with him, you know. He says, come with me. So he takes us downstairs. He sits us along the wall, on the side of the wall. And all the other players are sitting with their backs to the wall, you know. And all these cops are down there. And now the guy in charge stands up in front of everybody. He says, okay. He said, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. He said, whose game is this? Finally, Breyer, the guy running the game, the old man, raised his hand to my game. Okay, you come over here with me. He told the other officer, he said, okay, call the paddy wagons. So I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me, paddy wagons. I'm going to go to jail. I've got broke. I got to get back to Fort Knox. So we're sitting down, me and Danny are sitting down in the end down there. And now when the guy said that, out of these 8 policemen that were in there, there was one young-looking guy. So Danny, out of the clear blue, he had a great gift of gab, you know, as you all know. And so Danny, he said, hey, I got a question for you. Come over here. So the young guy comes over. And Danny says, you know, he said, you look so familiar to me. He said, where do I know you from? The guy said, well, gosh, he said, I don't know. You know, he said, you know, I've been a police officer for about a year. He said, I go part-time to Wright State. Danny said, that's it. That's it. He said, I go to Wright State too. Danny's never been on Wright State's campus in his lifetime. He said, I go to Wright State too. He said, that's where I've probably seen you. The guy said, oh. He said, yeah. He said, what are you taking? Whose class are you in? Now, before Danny had the chance to answer that, he knew the paddy wagons were coming. He had to move fast. He said, hey, look. He said, you know, my friend's in the Army here. He said, I'm in college. You know, we weren't even playing in the game. You guys caught us upstairs coming out. You know, we weren't even playing, you know. He says, any chance you can do anything for us? You know. So now this young guy calls over the guy that was in charge. And he's starting to explain the story. I can hear what he's saying. All of a sudden, the guy in charge comes over and says, okay, you two can go. So I can't believe this. So we start up the steps. Now, before we get up the steps and out the door, Danny says, watch this. He sticks his head under the banister and screams down at everybody. He said, Breyer, he said, what time's the game starting tomorrow night? He said, I said, are you crazy? Let's get out of here. We walk outside, paddy wagons just drive up, sirens on everywhere. They took the rest of them in jail, but me and Danny got off because it was good talking. So that was always a great thing. And then a short while later, as you know the story, Danny and Chip took their famous tour to Las Vegas, got very rich. And I'd gotten out of the Army and was living in North Carolina and got married. Finally, after about 3 years, I talked to Danny every once in a while. I knew they were doing well. I said, you got to come to Vegas. You got to come to Vegas. So finally, in February of 1977, I took my first trip to Las Vegas. And Danny said, you can stay at our house, Chip and Danny's house. Well, this is the greatest bachelor pad you've ever seen back to me in those days. You know, they cut out one bedroom on one side and made 2 giant master bedrooms for Danny and Chip. They had a rec room, a swimming pool, and pool table and bar. And the most impressive thing to me was they must have had 500 movies stacked up. They were cassettes back in those days, with a big screen as big as this. Nobody had that in those days, ever. And these guys had 500 home movies that you could watch The Godfather or anything on in their house, and that was very impressive to me. So my first day in town, I take my whole net worth, $2,500, out to Vegas. And I said to Danny, I said, what's on schedule? What are we doing? What's happening tomorrow? He said, well, tomorrow I got a big golf game. I said, you got a big golf game? I said, who are you playing? He said, I'm playing a guy who weighs 400 pounds. I said, you're playing a guy who weighs 400 pounds. I said, what are you spotting him? He said, a half a shot aside. I said, a half a shot aside. Now, I know it's 77, you know, but I was with Danny when he was a superstar golfer. It was not that long later, you know. I said, there's not a man who weighs 400 pounds in the world that can play you with a half a shot aside. He laughed. He said, it's going to be a tough game. He said, we're playing $20,000 Nassau with 1 automatic press, meaning you could lose 5 bets. And he said, you can have a piece of it if you want. Well, I had $2,500 to my name. I said, I'm going to bet $500 Nassau on you. He said, you got it. So the next day we drive out to Las Vegas Country Club. And certain, as you all know, the guy he played was Doyle Brunson. So they're warming up in the putting green. And they go, and I'd never met Doyle. Now at the time he was the reigning World Series poker champion, you know, but you know, I'd never seen him play golf, and I just couldn't believe, just looking at him, he had any chance in the world to possibly beat Danny playing golf. So they tee off on number 1. Both of them hit good shots. I mean, Danny hits a perfect drive right down the middle of the fairway. And Doyle hits a tee shot that went about as high as this box right here. It's a low line drive down the middle, you know. And now we're driving.